As I see it, spooky season starts whenever one feels spooky. So for people like me, that starts in June. But for the average person, it might start in October. If you're not like me, you may be wondering, why would you feel spooky in June? But the answer is, June is when Spirit Halloween teases their new animatronics. I have personally been super into Spirit Halloween for like maybe 5 years. Mind you, I've never bought an animatronic before this season, but I was like, I know all the lore, I'm watching all the videos, I'm very into the community, you know? Because it wasn't just about Spirit Halloween, it's more so haunted house makers and designers. If you're watching this video, I'm sure you're part of the haunter community, so we call it. So this year, I finally thought, why don't I join the community? I've been a viewer for so long, and I have so many opinions on the animatronics every year, so why not review them all? So the way that I'm gonna do this is what I call fright or flight. It's basically like yes or no, except like Halloween theme, you know what I'm saying? So fright would be a yes, flight would be a no. Let's get spooky. Jumping right into it, we're gonna take a look at Hellspawn. This prop is a reskin of Mr. Dark, which immediately it's a yes from me, because Mr. Dark had like the best mechanism. That jump scare, every time it works. And honestly, I'm always impressed with how high it can jump up, especially just for something that's animatronic from a store like Spirit Halloween, not something professional, not something, you know, just it's a tiny little box, but it will shoot up into the air. And it does it fast too. That's why it works so well. I've never seen someone like not jump, especially when people were touring the flagship stores. I was like, this is the one. I also do really like the devil theme going on, although I do wish maybe that the reds were a bit of a darker, like muskier red. Musky. But honestly, it works so well, I don't even want to critique it. Hellspawn is a fright. Moving on to Leatherface. I do hate to say it, but it's an absolute no in my book. I hate this prop. I hate this with a passion, and I feel like no one else feels it. And I think the reason I hate it with so much of a passion is because the community doesn't collectively hate it enough for me, so I need to hate it more so that the average level of hate is like lower. It's not that bad, it's just I've seen so much better. I feel like the skin looks so cheap and plasticky, even like on the hands, it's like clean, the plastic's like shiny for some reason. I just feel like they could have thrown some dirt on there and I would have liked it so much better. When it comes to the animation, it's kind of lame, it's like lackluster. Before I saw this one in person, I did say that the mask didn't have enough texture. I felt like it could have been dirtier, it could have been, you know, just more texturized. But once I saw it in person, I realized it kind of was. I think just the videos didn't do it justice. But in the end, after everything I said at the beginning, this is a flight. Now we go to Stilts. No. His face is so bad. Like the eyes are just painted on. Like there's no like eye, you know? I don't, like the blood on the bowling pins is like not well executed, but also why bowling pins? Is that like a carnival thing, really? Maybe with like the games with like the, never mind. Honestly, maybe a repaint could make it better, but I don't know that it could make it any better than just good. I do have to say, in person, it's like way bigger than it seems like it was gonna be, even if you do know the measurements. It just doesn't really come off like that, because even like the head itself is like big. And in my local Spirit, they had him like right next to the front entrance, so you would walk in and he would just like be there, so you could kind of like feel the large presence there. Unfortunately, Stilts is a flight, which is actually very ironic because the two front animatronics in the theme, Leatherface and Stilts, are my least favorite. A lot of the hate is, again, just to balance out the general opinion, but I don't like either of them. Now, here's one that is a yes from me, something I like. Deathstalker. I love Deathstalker. I love the weird animal creature thingy. It's so fun. I always love when you can't like really tell what something is. I think that adds a whole nother level to the fear. It's a very versatile creature. I think this is something that Hauntformer has talked about in his videos. I know he plans on using it in his nautical themed haunt, which is a really good idea. Then again, I think you could use it in like any other opportunity basically. It's just so like, you can really put it anywhere and it's always gonna be scary. Dog, this one was not in my local spirit, so I didn't get to see it in person, but I watched Hauntformer's unboxing and man, it looks better in person, which is crazy because it looks so good already in the video. I just think the design's really unique. It doesn't really have anything too weird, like in a way that it doesn't fit. You just really don't know what it is, and that's the scariest part. Additionally, that like hunch in its back is fantastic. I love it. It takes up so much space, like not necessarily in height, but just like in general. And I think you can really like feel that when it's there. Side note, I am someone that gets really freaked out by like big things. So maybe that's part of why I keep saying how I can like feel the size of these guys. I also really enjoyed the way they integrated the fog machine. I think it adds a nice touch to it. Obviously, Deathstalker is a fright. Moving on to Lil Jack Carver. I do, for the most part, like the design, but the jump scare is not effective. I think this is something that pretty much everyone has touched on, just the fact that you can tell already, obviously, what it's gonna do with the hands being on the pumpkin. And honestly, the voice is kind of stupid. I'm not a big fan of it. And I don't think he's supposed to be a clown, but my initial thought was that his face looks like a clown. I don't know if it's just because I'm used to Spirit having all these clowns or just that they're used to making clowns, but I don't know. Unfortunately, this one is going to be a flight. Next up is Slim from Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I am biased because I love Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but I really like Slim. His movement, even though he doesn't do that much, it is very smooth. I just wish maybe he turned a bit when he crouches or something. I really like the audio. I think they picked a good one. He also looks bigger in person. That's something I noticed. You know how I said that Stilts is right by the entrance of my local spirit? Well, Slim was on the other side of the entrance, so you got duo clowns. Way better than that one. Same with Shorty. I just think they do a really good job with them. They're super movie accurate. They keep the like cartoony vibe going on. It's just fun. So Slim is a fright. Next up here is Scary Sitting Scarecrow. I don't really have a strong opinion on this one, and it's not technically a return prop because the last one is Sitting Scarecrow, but I think for what it's supposed to be, it's pretty good. But because of the price, it has to be a flight for me. I think this thing could just be like 80 bucks and it'd be worth it, but this is like over 100. It's definitely not worth the price. Don't have much more to say, so let's move on to Poor George. This is one of the props that I liked way better in person. I think once I was face to face with it, the actual face was creepier, because it had the blood on the mouth. However, I'm not really a fan of any of the clowns at this point. I think just because they were overdone, I can't really get myself to like them. I just think that like the colors and the styling are very similar to every other spirit clown. I think really the only thing that sets it apart is the concept itself with the spinning torso, but I don't think that concept is good enough to hold it up on its own. So because of that, I would have to say Poor George is a flight. Next up is one that not everyone is even aware of. It is Thresher. So Thresher's just a simple walkthrough animatronic. He doesn't really move. In fact, he doesn't move at all. I don't know why I said really. I guess the animatronic part is just like the voice. However, contrary to what other people have said, I think he looks really cool. They made some good fabric choices. It doesn't look clean like some of them tend to. I just think it's a fun thing to incorporate in your decor rather than just like placing it in your yard. I also think it's a very good basic prop that you can have on its own without having to worry about if it's weird to have alone. So I would say that Thresher is a fright for me. Now let's take a look at the Black Heart. I don't know why, but this is just a really forgettable prop for me. It is a big one, but I never really think about it. I just think it's not that original, and something about it reminds me of Harvester of Souls for some reason. I guess it's just because they're both Reaper adjacent, and they both hold some girl or some woman. Which, side note, I feel like women are really only in props when they're either really creepy little girls or like really old women who are either like dead or possessed. I want like a creepy female monster or something. How about that? Anyways, the Harvester was better than this guy. And I know they weren't supposed to be anything similar, but my brain decided that they were, and now I can't separate them. So I gotta say the black card is a flight. Now we have my favorite of the season, and a lot of people's favorite of the season, Darling Dolly. Right off the bat, yes, immediately yes. Definitely the creepiest. I think this one gets the most scares out of anyone. The jump scare on this one is incredibly effective. I've seen it get anyone to jump. I love the concept, the monster things, the hands, it's great. I think this prop, Hellspawn, and Emmeline are the 3 best jump scares of the year. So because of those 3, I don't know that I can say any one is the best, but they're all so good. The neck lunging forward is so good because not only is it a creepy thing like on its own, but the jump scare works. The audio too is like loud and annoying when you're in the store, but so scary when you use it. The only criticism I have, or had really, is that the head feels mismatched. I get that it's like supposed to be mismatched, like it's the monster and the doll head, but I think something about maybe like the hair is like not messy enough, or like the size, something's a little bit weird. It might be like the textures even, or like the coloring, but once I saw it in person, it kind of grew on me. Or I might have just been swayed by everyone loving it so much, but honestly, I don't have a problem with it anymore. So obviously, Darling Dolly is a fright. I'm gonna choose not to do returning props, but I do want to touch on Grave Watcher. The only reason I want to do this is because I bought her this year. That makes her my first ever animatronic, even though I've been super into them, never owned one. And the reason for that is the price. Finally, I feel like it's the only thing that's really worth the exact number. I got her for $80, which is very reasonable in my opinion. I just can't usually afford the animatronics, and I feel like this is finally one that was within my budget. I also already have a graveyard set up in my yard, so I figured she goes perfectly with that. I really like the whisper, I like the glowing candles, the eyes. Honestly, I just really like the design. I think it's creepy. It's also very simple, so it's pretty hard to go wrong, and it's not too terrifying that little kids will like avoid my house, but you know, I like it. So obviously it's a fright, but I'm not really gonna include it because it's not technically new. I'm gonna do Crypt Keeper next. Personally, I never really watched Tales from the Crypt, so I don't have that like connection to the prop. Because of that, I don't think I have a place to judge whether it's good. I do think he looks really good. I think it would be better if he moved more than just his head. And he has a lot of voice lines, which is probably why he's $400. And I think the reason why I feel like I can judge it is because there's no way it's worth $400. Everything has been so expensive this year, but this one is just blowing it out of the water. So Crypt Keeper is a flight. So there are 4 props I took the liberty of grouping together because I feel like they're all very classically Halloween-y, and if you don't know what I mean, you will in a second. First one is Gordo. Already you probably know what I mean. If it weren't for the price, I would definitely be getting this one. I just think it's such a classic pumpkin jack-o'-lantern. Just, it's good. It's Halloween, man. I think the mold of the pumpkin is great. I think the jump scare, while not that scary, is fun. I really like the stringiness of the pumpkin inside when it goes up too. It's just super Halloween-y, man. What can I say? It's fun. Another one is Howling Spirit. I don't know how people feel about this one, but I personally love it. Honestly, this is another one where if the price was a little more reasonable, I would be getting it. No, it isn't scary or startling, but here's the thing. A lot of young children come to my house on Halloween, as they do anyone's house on Halloween, and I don't currently run a yard haunt or anything like that, so any prop I get is gonna be for the front yard. And I know that when I was a little kid, especially, I had the worst phobia of anything remotely scary, so it was like bad. So I know if something like Darling Dolly was in someone's front yard, I would have peed my pants and maybe even died, honestly. So while I absolutely adore those scary props, I think it's nice to have ones that are simpler and more of a spooky vibe. So I really like the classic Halloween-y ones. And to say the word Halloween-y as much as possible, let's move on to another Halloween-y prop, the Cauldroness. The fog machine is super well implemented, and I do think the face is bad, honestly, and every time I've seen it, it looks different. I can't tell what the facial expression actually is because every photo and video and whatever I've seen, it's just not the same face. Something's a little bit different, and I haven't seen it in person, so I guess I have no way of really knowing. However, she's a very classic Halloween prop, and I enjoy her animation. It has to be a yes. P.S. Everything that I say is super Halloween-y is a yes, so all 4 of these. So the next one is also a yes, Desmodus. So something I've noticed is that the mech is super loud, but I kind of think it adds to the jump scare. And to someone who's not really thinking about it, it kind of almost just sounds like bat wings. I have seen a lot of people jump at this scare too, so good job. He's basically just a big bat, so what could go wrong? Honestly, I would love to see someone do like a complete makeover of him and make him more of a vampire bat. I know he is a vampire bat, but like, I don't know, maybe some blood on the mouth or something fun. So those were the 4 Halloween-y props, all frights. Let's move on. I do want to get Martian Warrior out of the way, so let's do that. So the Martian Warrior is from the Mars Attacks trading cards, not from the movie. It's got a fun missing laser, I'd like that. Again, I think it's expensive, but so is everything. I would say, for me, that the animation's boring, but again, I don't really have a connection to Mars Attacks at all, so I don't really think I can be a fair judge. So, no opinion. Now we've got Eternal Rest. It's boring. I truly don't think this jump scare has ever worked on anyone. I don't know that I even see the vision for what this should be, so it's gonna be a flight. Nothing else to say about that one. This next one is one of my favorites, Emmeline. This jump scare is fantastic. I think the lunge is so impressive. Similar to with Hellspawn, how far up it goes, this one's just like how far out it goes, and I'm just impressed every time. I'm really in awe of how much space it takes up. I really just, no comment. I'm just disappointed that we didn't get to see it in person, but honestly, no other issues. Fright, all the way. Next we got Dagger Mike. I think he looks or feels bigger in person than in photos and videos. And the jump scare is better when you have to be face to face with it versus on video. I also do like that the color scheme is kind of different than the typical spirit clown. It's not like neon green or whatever, you know? However, I don't like his voice. It's just kind of weird and it's not that creepy. I know I didn't like critique it very much, but I'm just not really a fan. It's not for me, so Dagger Mike is a flight. This one was recalled, unfortunately, but it is Heckles. It is a clown, and I typically don't like clowns, but this is an exception. I like that he's sad, and it's almost like he's scared. And it's like, if we're scared of him, then what is he scared of? Like, it's a good concept. I also like how the face is kind of human and not like, boom, clown. With all that being said, Heckles is a yes. That is everything that's been released this year. One extra thing, there have been speakings of a collector's minion, and all I will say about that is Young Crouchy was bad enough, and no further questions. And that makes it all of it. So let's move on to my overall opinions. I feel like I said no to way more props than I meant to, because in my opinion, this is one of the best years overall that I've seen. Even the worst of this year that I said that I really hated were still better than some of the really, really bad ones from previous years. I am not talking about Leatherface. Leatherface is a no, always. So many additional props were released after the initial chunk were leaked, and I think those really made up for everything. I think like Emmeline and Darling Dolly are like some of the best things I've seen, and they're so good, and they were released after the initial chunk, and I really love them. All clowns considered, not a horrendous amount of clowns, so well done there. I will say, because of inflation, almost everything is overpriced, and that always makes me sad, but as the prices go up, the quality seems to go down. Even with the ones that I love, and the design is perfect, and some might even say flawless, I think that the actual prop, when you're like seeing it in person, just looks cheap. Most of them are very plastic looking. The movements look like the thing doesn't have enough weight to it ever to actually do what it's supposed to do. Even like the fabrics are super cheap. My Grave Watcher fabric just ripped a little bit just when I was putting her together. A lot of the paint job isn't that great. Honestly, it's just quality. Like the sculpting of the actual prop is always so much better than the paint job. With all that being said, I do think we had a fantastic variety of props this year. I feel like we had a good mix for all ages, with things that were spooky and Halloween-y versus things that were, scary darling dolly. At the end of the day, this was a fantastic year for Spirit, and I'm so happy with everything we got. And I know this is really late for like Opinions 2023 video, but I feel like I'm glad that I made one anyways. And for anyone who doesn't make videos, if you want to drop a comment and let me know any of your opinions or thoughts on my opinions, please leave a comment. In conclusion, I hope to see you guys in any future videos if those come soon. And I hope you have a spooky time if they don't, and a spooky time if they do. Bye bye.